Ever wonder why some companies just seem to, really nail it when it comes to mergers and acquisitions? Like they just keep growing and expanding, and it always seems to work out for them.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing, isn't it? You see these big deals announced, and you can't help but wonder, what's their secret? What do they know that others don't?
It's true, it's a high stakes game for sure. And today we're diving into a research paper that really tries to get to the bottom of it: management practices and M&A success. It was published in the Journal of Banking and Finance, and they argue that, a huge part of it, a huge part of why some companies succeed while others fail, might be the acquiring company's own management practices.
Interesting. Yeah, their internal workings. That's an angle you don't always hear about. A lot of the focus tends to be on, did they pick the right target company? Did they pay the right price? But this paper really puts the spotlight on the acquirer's management, their internal stuff.
And what's really cool is they actually found a way to put a number on good management, like quantify it.
Right, which is huge
Yeah.
because, management, how do you even measure that? It's all, leadership, decision making, the
Well,
way people communicate. It's not exactly something you can just plug into a spreadsheet.
exactly. It's kind of a black box, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like in the past, people have tried to assess management by looking at, how much experience the CEO has or just the company's overall track record.
hmm
But those things only tell you so much, right?
So how did this research try to crack that code?
Well, they treated management as an input to the production process. Like, you've got labor, capital, and then there's management. So they took data from thousands of companies going back decades, and they built this really sophisticated model
Hmm.
to isolate and actually measure the impact of those management practices.
Wow, so they really went deep on this, and I'm guessing the findings were pretty interesting if we're talking about it.
Oh, yeah. What they found is that companies with high management scores, according to their model, those companies saw much, much higher returns on their mergers and acquisitions.
Okay, now we're talking. How much higher are we talking here? Give us the juicy details. Much, much higher returns. Okay, now you've got my attention. But what does that look like in real world terms? Like, what kind of numbers are we talking about here?
Well, their research showed that companies with those high management scores actually saw returns on their M&A deals
Hmm.
that were up to, get this, 54.7% higher than companies with lower scores.
54.7%. Wow, that's not insignificant. That's huge. I mean, that really drives home the point that strong management, it's not just some feel-good thing, it's a real competitive advantage.
It absolutely is. And what's interesting is it's not like these companies were just stumbling into success.
Hmm?
The research suggests they were approaching M&A very deliberately with a clear strategy and a well-defined process. They were thinking about things like how to integrate teams effectively, how to find those synergies everyone talks about, and, probably the hardest part, how to blend different company cultures.
So it sounds like it's not just about having a plan, but also being able to adapt that plan as you go. Because let's face it, no two mergers are exactly alike.
Exactly. It's that agility, that ability to adjust on the fly when challenges pop up. You know they will. But these companies, they weren't just reacting to problems, they were trying to anticipate them and head them off at the pass.
Okay, so this is all super interesting, but I do have to ask, how much of this is just about the management score? Did the researchers consider other things that could affect M&A success?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
They weren't just looking at management in a vacuum. They controlled for a whole bunch of other factors, like the size of the company, the industry they were in, even how democratic the company's decision-making structure was.
So they really tried to isolate the impact of management practices.
Absolutely. And even after controlling for all those other variables, that management score, it was still the biggest predictor of how well a company would do with their M&A. Like, it wasn't just one factor among many, it was a really powerful one.
This is really making me rethink how we evaluate companies, especially if they're looking to grow through acquisitions. Like, yeah, the financials matter, their market position matters, but maybe we should be paying more attention to their, I don't know, their management DNA.
I think that's a great way to put it. This research suggests that investors and analysts should be digging deeper into a company's management track record, how they make decisions, how they build a culture of continuous improvement. Those things, they can tell you a lot about their chances of succeeding in M&A.
It's like looking beyond the balance sheet and trying to understand the company's, well, its personality almost. But here's something else that struck me. The paper talked about how companies can actually get better at managing, like it's not a fixed thing. What did they have to say about that?
Yeah, and that's what makes this research so valuable. It's not just about understanding where you stand, but about giving you a roadmap for improvement. Like, how do you develop those management muscles, so to speak.
And that's something everyone can benefit from, right? It's not just for the Fortune 500 crowd.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whether you're running a small business or just managing a team, these principles still apply.
So let's talk about that. What are some things our listeners can take away from this research and actually apply in their own work, no matter what their role is? I love that. It's like, this isn't just about those mega mergers. It's about building better businesses, better teams, no matter what.
Exactly, yeah. The
Yeah.
fundamentals are the same.
So like, how do we take all this academic stuff and actually use it? What can people listening do, starting today to improve their own management game?
Well, a big one that came through in the research was this idea of creating a culture of continuous improvement. That might sound kind of jargony, but
No, I get it. It's like always trying to get better, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's about being open to learning new things, getting feedback, not being afraid to change things up if something isn't working. And it starts at the top, with leaders who are willing to do those same things.
Right, leading by example. Makes sense. Anything else that jumped out at you from the paper in terms of specific practices that really move the needle?
They talked a lot about communication, especially when you're trying to bring together different teams, different companies. Like clear, consistent communication. That's huge for breaking down those silos, building trust, making sure everyone's on the same page.
Totally. I think we've all been in situations where like things went sideways just because of a misunderstanding or somebody didn't get the memo.
Oh, for sure. It's so often the little things, right? And, the last thing I'd say is this whole management thing, it's not like you arrive at good management and then you're done. It's a process, a journey.
Yeah, you got to keep working at it, keep learning.
Absolutely. Embrace the challenge, learn from your mistakes, and never stop trying to improve.
Well said. This has been a fantastic deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, from the surprising impact of management on M&A deals to how you actually measure something as tricky as good management. But I think the most valuable part is, what can we all do differently? How can we be better leaders, build better teams?
Couldn't agree more. And I think the big takeaway here is investing in your management skills is not just a nice to have, it's essential. No matter what kind of business you're in, no matter what your role is.
Totally. And on that note, to our listeners, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. Keep those management muscles flexed, and we'll see you next time.